Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Thursday, February 12th, 2026. Time for yet another show. Hey, you won't believe it. Crazy things are happening, both currently and happened in the last 24 hours. And we have the task of letting you know what they are. It's amazing. They never stop with this stuff. Big day yesterday, and of course we lost Greg about halfway through thanks to an ice raid on the actual cabling outside of his house. The frozen water kind of ice, but it could have been anything. You never know. You don't know where ice is going to descend next, or where they may be trying to build a giant prison camp. Apparently it could be right in your backyard at any given time. So, keeping an eye on that situation. Pam Bondi on the Hill yesterday making a mess of things and embarrassing herself generally. I don't think she embarrassed. I don't know if she's embarrassed because she's just that kind of person. All right. Well, you got to switch your sound over to the headphones there, Greg. Although this is a fantastic show. I should listen to it once in a while. I'm doing it now. Anyway, Pam Bondi's performance yesterday generally panned by most people, including I just saw, I think Newsmax actually said that it was a disaster, but it was interesting to see. I'll have to go back and see if I can find that. They had to find a way to say it was a disaster without it being Donald Trump's fault. But I guess that the fact that they had to acknowledge that it was a disaster means that they couldn't just, with a straight face, say it was a triumph. Which is interesting because there was a very definite strategy going on there of trying to make a mess of things. And I guess it went too far. And even Newsmax says, well, it's a real problem and we have to do something about it because Pam Bondi made a mess of things and she really needs to be doing everything she can to see that President Trump succeeds because of what a genius he is. And if everybody's mad at the administration, it's clearly her fault and not his fault for having chosen her to be Attorney General. Of course, he didn't choose her to be Attorney General. He chose Matt Gaetz to be Attorney General. And then that one didn't work out because something. And then a while later, we were in the Epstein files. And anyway, I don't think nobody has showed me whether Gaetz is in the Epstein files. I don't think so. He wasn't in that. He wasn't in that kind of elite at the time, which is interesting because now you should realize there are small, mini, regional, less elite Epstein circles everywhere in the country and around the world, apparently. And he's not the only one doing this. There's plenty of people, I'm sure, who wanted in on that and couldn't get in on the action, so started their own horrific sex abuse rings. But here it is. Yeah, Sarah Posner has the story of Newsmax getting mad about having Pam Bondi in the government. And everybody should be. It was a disgraceful performance. Greg has more on that and more on everything that's going on. There's lots happening. Something we didn't get to yesterday because of the ICE situation, which I know is waiting in the wings. And, well, let's see. I'm not even certain how we'll start to. I've forgotten where all of our great fanfare's on. But, of course, Greg likes the simplest one. And now that I've wasted 5 minutes talking about the things he's going to talk about, we can just get right to it. Good morning, Greg, and pass the margarine, please.
Oh, there you have it. I can't believe it.
Oh, I'm sorry. What is it? He says pass the butter, right? And she doesn't respond right away and he gets angry. That was it. Something like that. Okay.
Something like that. Anyway, there was stuff I was going to talk about yesterday that I didn't. Of course, now I can't even remember what it was, but that's okay.
I could remind you, but you start.
Things happen. We were talking about election integrity and how nobody's buying Trump's argument about why he had to raid Fulton County election data.
Well, somebody bought it, but a magistrate judge bought it temporarily.
Anyway. But then they're looking back and saying, hey, a lot of this stuff is made up, rehash stuff. The people down in Georgia, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Greg Bluestein, the people who follow this stuff say this is just old stuff. Stephen Fowler from NPR, nice, polite Republicans, said,
everybody's on it.
This is a bunch of garbage.
Yeah, anybody who followed the story recognized that but they had to wait to unseal the affidavit which underlay the search warrant
Right,
That's
to
the
find
way
out
this
it was all garbage.
Yeah, and then it was
We thought
familiar to
garbage,
everybody.
and now we've seen it is garbage. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sending you the Stephen Fowler report.
all right.
That's as good as any.
Sure.
But before we get to Pam Bondi,
Before we
I
do.
have to set the stage.
No, wait a minute. I want to get to Pam Bondi right now. Oh, I'm just practicing. All right, yes. Go ahead, please.
No, you're not doing it right.
No, I'm not. All right.
Pam Bondi,
Yes,
you want to
I
get to
am.
Pam Bondi? You loser.
Yeah.
You've never
Outrage.
been any good at anything you've ever done in your entire life. That's why you're
Oh.
doing pot. That's what it was like.
Yes, it was quite interesting. She came with a whole book of hits to
Burn
yell
book,
at
Jamie
people.
Raskin called it.
Yeah.
But again, before we get to that, there's
Oh.
a couple
No,
other things
all
I
right.
want to
Oh, yes,
I want to do.
All right, I'm playing.
Because you have to set the stage for how unpopular Trump is to see why this doesn't work. Like, if he's super popular, maybe it does.
Okay.
But when everybody hates
Yeah.
what he's doing, it doesn't. That's really the point. So this
All
is
right, yes,
strength
good
in
point.
numbers. The less voters knew, the more they liked Trump in 2024. Not
Well,
anymore. That's the
Okay.
headline.
All right.
The least engaged Americans have swung 25 points against him since 2024,
Actually,
about
that
twice
is
the
interesting.
shift among everybody else.
It's not that they've become more informed. It's that
Right.
equally uninformed people are. I don't know I don't know why. I just don't like him anymore. That's
Vibe.
fine.
I just don't
That's
like
great.
the vibes. I like
That's
Bad Bunny,
really good.
and I don't like this guy.
That's an excellent point. I mean, who thinks to measure that? If you don't know anything about anything, how do you feel?
Right.
I don't know. We don't ask those people that.
If you don't know anything about anything, can you please take our poll and tell us what we should do based on what the country
But
thinks?
look, they have ID. They can go vote. You don't have to know anything about anything.
My ID says I don't know anything. I don't know anything ID. I have
Yeah.
no nothing status. It
Interesting.
says so right
No,
here on my
seriously,
real ID
that's-
card that I need to vote for what? There's no election.
It's a very interesting story, and of course, alongside all of our, we have to do this or that for the persuadables. What about the idiots who don't want to know nothing about anything? I don't want to hear it. Oh, well, they're migrating on their own. Okay.
Well, there's this thing called osmosis, political osmosis. Right?
yes.
You just let things seep in.
Yeah.
According to our poll, says
High
Julia
prices will
Morris,
do it.
Yes. Low knowledge vote, and also picking up grandma and sending her to Texas,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. If that
even though
happens
she's
to
a
you.
member of the DAR and, always votes
KKK,
Republican.
possibly even.
According to our poll,
Yeah.
low knowledge voters backed Trump
LKV.
by a net margin of 11 points in 2024.
All right.
11 points, that's a lot. It's too
Yeah,
much.
we just figured that the vibe was, I don't know, I guess he might do good.
We need a
and that was it.
change.
Yeah. Okay.
We need a change. Now, however, the same low knowledge voters say they disapprove of the president by 13 points. That's a 25-point swing away from the president.
Yeah. And you really
Or as
want to
Harry
swing
Enton
away
on
from the
CNN would
president.
say, that's a 25-point switcheroo. What am I talking about? Right here in the poll.
Oh.
High knowledge voters were roughly evenly split in 2024, voting for Harris by 2 points,
Okay.
and have moved against Trump at a softer rate to only minus 14. So they started out bad. You can't drop a lot if you don't start out real high in the first place,
Okay, true.
right? If you jump off a cliff that's like 2 inches, you're not going to get very far compared to where you were.
You might not even
But
be able
if
to
you
say
jump
it's a
off the
cliff.
roof of the house, the difference between where you were and where you land can be, shall we say, significant.
Sure. Okay.
So low knowledge voters are now minus 14. Excuse me, minus 13. And high knowledge voters are minus 14.
Okay. All right. So knowledge doesn't seem to have a great deal to do with this.
Where you land. Knowledge has a great deal to do with where you started.
Okay. Oh, right. Yeah, the height of the cliff. There's a different kind of cliff.
When you land on the ground, it's the ground. But it's a question of where you
True.
started
A
from.
low knowledge voter who switches might not be particularly alarmed at what he's decided to do, where a high knowledge voter might be shocked when they switch, I guess.
Do presidents control gas prices?
Am I
yes or no?
which knowledge voter am I?
Just
I'm
you.
low. Oh, just me. All right, low. Yes.
Okay.
There's
Then
a sticker
you
on the
think-
pump that
Yeah,
says
what
he did
about
it.
beef prices? Do presidents control beef prices?
If Trump would eat less beef, he could. He would
Do
open
presidents
the market.
control whether or not your girlfriend said goodbye?
Did the president get me my girlfriend? Because that is a thing.
Well, I mean, if all these things happen and you blame everything on the president,
Yeah.
and
I
you
do.
think things suck right now,
Yeah.
you're going to drop them like a hot potato.
True. Okay. Right. So a low knowledge voter that doesn't know any of those things don't happen might be angry, and a high knowledge voter that also says, "What are you talking about?"
Well, when
And
you
he's a
break out
pervert.
Trump's approval
Yeah.
on specific issues, high
This is
and
interesting.
low knowledge voters, high informed, low informed knowledge voters, are the same on everything.
This is a
Except
new
prices.
horseshoe theory. Oh,
except
okay.
prices.
Oh,
Low knowledge voters
yeah.
disapprove of Trump's handling of prices by 40 points compared to minus
think
30
he-
among high knowledge adults. That 10-point gap is statistically significant.
Yes. All right. I'll take it.
That's
is it
why
because they
Trump
don't
saying,
understand?
no, the economy is good makes no difference. I'm not paying attention. I just know what I know when I go to the store.
Yeah. All right. I get you. Right. But I read in the paper that the economy.
I don't read the paper.
I
I'm
don't.
low
Yeah.
knowledge, but I did
I couldn't
go to the
afford the
store and-
paper.
oh, my God.
Yeah. The paper was paywalled, and I can't pay it.
Did you see the price of filet and wine? Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. And I had to show ID for
And
the
Dos
fillet.
Equis. You know how much Dos Equis cost these days? It's ridiculous.
Yes.
I don't care whether or not I had to throw ID on the table to get my
Yeah.
Dos Equis. Look at the tariffs. I
can only afford one
I don't know if it's
Equis.
tariffs or not. All I know, I can only afford Dos Equis.
Just one. I'll have half, please. You guys want to split it? All right. Well, lots happening with that. That is interesting. I like that trend. No one thinks to examine that.
Right. So Trump
We're
won
all
in
into
2024,
knowledge.
says G. Elliott Morris, in large part because 1/4 of the electorate wasn't paying attention to his promises, especially. So they didn't know what he was going to do as president. Now that they're seeing the results, especially on prices, they're just as anti-Trump as everybody else.
That is very interesting.
So if
And-
Republicans aren't winning high-knowledge respondents because
Oh.
of the negative news, and they aren't winning low-knowledge respondents because of conditions, who they going to win?
Yeah.
See results in special elections.
Yeah, real interesting. That is something. And, of course, this has huge implications. I mean, I guess you really want to parse it. Well, you have to be a high-knowledge voter to even be interested in parsing it. But,
And know what parsing means.
yeah, all right, that too. And but thinking about, for instance, the justification that they give for everything. Well, this is what the country voted for. There was a huge mandate for Trump. There wasn't a huge mandate. Of course, we know about those numbers, but he's going to lie about that and say this is what the country voted for. And high-knowledge voters keep doing that, too, on social media to one another. Well, this is what these people voted for. They may have no idea what in the world they voted for, and it's manifesting itself in this huge swing. I voted for this? Wait a second. Holy crap. Can I do this again? No, or I have to wait? Well, I'm angry. I'll tell you that. But when the administration does it, when Trump and his people say this is what the American people wanted, and there's a very clear indication whether high knowledge, low knowledge, and everything in between, people are saying, this is actually not what I was looking for. It's not my recollection of what you promised. Even if I'm wrong, I still vote. I'm angry about what you did, and I'm going to vote accordingly. All right.
What about jobs? This is called the
don't
jobs
know.
recession, the current high knowledge theory of what's going on with Wall Street and the jobs market is that it's
All
a
right.
jobs recession. Jobs are scarce,
Yes.
but
We found this on the web.
Oh.
What's going on?
Oh, I found it. What is going on the web?
thank you.
You must have
Siri.
said
That's
something
exactly what I wanted.
Did you say,
No.
what did we say? Serious? This is a
Yeah,
serial
Siri,
issue?
superb owl. So
Yeah.
Siri decided to chime in.
All right.
So
I
I'm
have
getting a
mine
lot
turned
of
off
noise
then.
in my phone today. I just
That's
turned
all
up
right.
the sound.
Hello?
Healthcare jobs have become the engine of America's labor market. You see, what happens is that there's some improvement in jobs in the latest report before it gets revised down. And by the way, last year was revised down tremendously. It was basically almost no jobs created.
I didn't create any.
But the total number of jobs created since the beginning of the year is somewhere around 260,000. However, we've lost jobs
I'll take
everywhere except healthcare. Healthcare is driving the jobs numbers.
Okay.
The only jobs that are available is healthcare. That means to say,
That's the
if
reason.
if your grandmother gets sick and you want somebody to take care of her at home, there's a job opening.
I know why.
Why is there a job? Yes, exactly. Why is there a job opening? Because nobody could fill it because ICE comes in and arrests both whoever's taking care of her and your grandmother.
Yeah. Right, for employing them. Now they're going to enforce that employment law. You've been employing illegal aliens. No, I haven't. They're not illegal. Well, shut up.
Right. The only good thing to take out of this, says Jed Kolko at the Peterson Institute for International Economics, said the fact that healthcare jobs are spread around the country and relatively stable no matter what the economy does helps. That means like they're the only stable thing and everything else is falling apart. So this is all background.
Well, now I know what job to look for.
Right? A year into
I got
Trump's
arrested,
term,
though.
we talked about this, I think. If not, I meant to. A year into Trump's term, voters say Biden was better. 3 separate polls show that voters now prefer Biden to Trump. Again, those are what we call elastic low information voters. That is to say, elastic because they'll switch her.
Okay.
They'll say, okay, I want this person. I don't want that person. They suck. Let's try this person. Let's change. Okay, we changed. Well, things still suck. I think I like that other person better. So that's what happens.
Yeah.
So in the throes of Biden's 2024 polling collapse, his allies often complained about Trump amnesia, the notion that voters a collective memory hold the chaos of the president's first term. But nearly 80 million Americans gave Trump a resounding election day mandate, said
They didn't.
a White House spokesperson.
Yeah.
But even under the hood of Trump's polling, the silver linings aren't there. His signature issues are liabilities. 49% of adults strongly disapprove of how Trump has handled border security and immigration. Remember, they're usually positive on border security and negative on information. Not this time.
Okay.
Trump's net approval on the economy, minus 18, 26 point lower than it was at this point in his first term. Young voters have cratered. YouGov economists found Trump at minus 42 among 18 to 29-year-olds, 51 points switcheroo from plus 9 at the start of his presidency. If you know anything about Donald Trump, you know he built his 2 presidential victories on winning the voters who are without a college degree. Harry Enton said, well, Trump's base with non-college voters is absolutely collapsing. Now, this isn't Biden nostalgia.
No. Okay.
But people just do not like where people are at the current time.
Okay.
That's why, going back to Pam Bondi, when she comes in exactly the way Democrats expected her to come in, audience of one, hostile, giving them a hard time for no good reason.
Right?
Okay. So they got what they expected,
Yes.
and it was a disaster for them, for the Republicans.
Good.
House Democrats think Pam Bondi just helped them in the midterms, says Politico. Again, a Trump-leaning
They don't.
piece. Politico generally does straight reporting, but always with a Republican spin. I was thinking of a guy who's no longer with us, not because I admired him, but just because the comment stuck. You may remember back in Bill Clinton's era.
Yes, I was alive.
I think it was Bill Clinton's era. It was definitely David Broder.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
He came to Washington and trashed
yes.
this place, and it's not his place, it's our place.
Yes, that was a Clinton comment.
And now you look back and say, what the heck was he talking about?
Compared to, had he lived to see
what the heck
this.
was he talking about? But, the point is, this is a mildly conservative Republican town, and how dare you treat it any other way?
Yes.
That's
what
always
it was
been
really about.
the Washington Post and the press's view of things. Always. And so, if the beleaguered Democrats, the Democrats in disarray, managed to do something, it's because somehow they did.
They adopted some Republican.
But the natural state of things, Republicans run everything, like in the Eisenhower era.
Yeah. I mean, totally different kind of Republican. Although they really never did.
But they never adjusted to the fact
yes.
that it's a totally different Republican. They just still have all the same attitudes.
The point is, there should be an R here, and if it's crazy idiots,
because our publisher's an R.
Yeah,
Come on,
I guess so.
Let's be clear.
All right.
So that's why when a place like Politico says this, it strikes me. House Democrats think Pam Bondi just helped them in the midterms. Tensions flared between Democrats and the Attorney General during a House Judiciary Committee hearing. Everybody knew it was going to happen.
Oh, boy.
For 4 hours, the nation's top law enforcement officer largely refused to answer questions from Democrats about the Justice Department's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files, which is a huge, big deal which you cannot simply ignore.
I heard that a lot of people are talking about it. Many people are talking about it.
Keir Starmer's talking about it. So in others, she responded by lashing out at committee members in personal terms.
Yes.
That's the part.
Yes.
Well, will you answer, why didn't you do this about Epstein? And by the way, weren't you Attorney General of Florida when all this stuff was breaking? He was getting his sweetheart deals?
Yeah. And so instead,
at one point calling Jamie Raskin of Maryland, the panel's top Democrat, a washed-up loser lawyer, not even a lawyer.
Okay.
Which is funny coming from her because all of her non-appointments are getting kicked out by the courts.
Yes, that's true. Not only are you not a lawyer, you're also not a U.S. attorney or interim.
Yes. Raskin, of course, is an
acting
ex-constitutional law professor, so it's not like he doesn't know anything about this.
Yes, he's somewhat informed. It was really a show. I mean, it really was in every sense of the word a show, and I guess it was supposed to be for Trump's benefit. I'm sure he really enjoyed it, but it's interesting that Newsmax did not. That's fascinating to me.
Yeah, so basically what Raskin said, look, folks, look, country, look, low information voters.
Ooh, well, they won't, but yeah.
If we had the power, we'd subpoena her, and we would require her to answer our questions.
Mm-hmm. Well,
like about Epstein.
Not really.
But,
yes. That threat would be.
She may or may not do so. We may or may not find her in contempt. We can't force her. But if you give us the majority, we can do things we cannot do right now.
Mm. It would certainly be dangerous for her to answer these questions this way.
Yes. The questions I've asked are not trick questions. They're not gotcha questions. They're actually basic questions about how the Department of Justice functions, said Representative Joe Neguse. Democrat Carlotta, also very good, who said the hearing lacked some modicum of resembling something that has typically been fairly conventional, an oversight hearing on the Department of Justice, which reminds me of an old Alan Sherman line about something being a genuine copy of a fake.
Okay.
You do have this veneer of my good friend, the gentleman from, the Commonwealth of Virginia, that sort of thing, and saying, listen, you jerk, you no-account, washed-up lawyer who never accounted for anything in your life, you're not even an accountant, that kind of thing.
It's totally insane. I was, at the end, I was wondering about it. I'm genuinely not sure how to handle a hearing like that, because it's not like talking to a human adult. There's a very different approach to what you have to do with this, and I don't know what it is. And I'm not sure that it wouldn't work to just curse and scream at her. I don't know.
Well, maybe this is where Newsmax was coming from. It was so bad that Jim Jordan had to interrupt and direct Pam Bondi to answer questions. That's what made it a disaster.
Yeah, that will contribute to things. I'm surprised that he did that. But I guess there is a level of embarrassment for him that's interesting.
More Raskin. I can't believe the Attorney General of the United States of America would appear before hundreds of millions of Americans this way and then have a book of insults she's ready to lob at members of Congress. We have to get back to the America we had before they drag this down in the mud like this. The events Wednesday boost Democrats' case in the midterm election. She did an excellent job in appealing to Donald Trump and this one-person audience, and it gave the public some information about what the Justice Department's not doing.
Yes.
Not only by trash-talking lawyers, Bondi played directly into Democrats' hands, similar to the maneuver she deployed when testifying before the committee back in October. Democrats coordinated with the victims of Epstein's abuse so that roughly 10 could sit in the hearing room behind Bondi. This is another part that was a disaster. Lawmakers offered her the opportunity to engage with them and apologize. She refused. She wouldn't look at them.
Right. There's a great photo from it that I think correctly identified as
photos
iconic.
And clips of that. Absolutely. I think it went great. The bottom line is, under the leadership of the Attorney General, crime is down, said Jim Jordan. Thomas Massey
the number
was
of people
not
being
happy
tried for crimes. Yeah. Well, Massey's never happy, but that's okay.
So then Bondi called Massey a failed politician and a hypocrite, and Massey said, you had to go through her book and find her insults on me. It took a long time. She couldn't find my insult card.
That's funny. That's true. I mean, this is literally the case, and they have a nice photo of it, and it's circulating on social media, one page.
It's called a burn book. You take the book to the hearing, and then you look for the burn.
Yeah.
So I see. Now, interestingly, there was one other thing which also made it a disaster.
Yes.
Somebody had a photograph.
Right.
Of her book, in which she had information about which Democratic staffers and or members of Congress had accessed which Epstein files.
Yes, so they're permitted to do that.
In other words, she's spying on Congress.
Yeah. which used to be a huge scandal. And as a matter of fact, just about 5 seconds ago, Republicans in the Senate were screaming that they needed to be allowed to sue the government for $500,000 apiece or
Yeah, they needed to grift because, the government found they were criming and therefore wanted to look into what they were doing. You can't do that. We're members of Congress.
Right. And so here, by law, we all remember that they actually passed this law, allowing members of Congress to view the unredacted Epstein files half an hour at a time on controlled computers at the DOJ headquarters so that, there's no extra leakage or anything. And so they all went and complied with the law and viewed these things the way they were supposed to. And as it turns out, the DOJ was logging every view and every page, and somehow, by the way, thought that it would reflect discredit on the members viewing the evidence of crimes so that they could pursue the perpetrators. That was the big insult. So it was they were a little bit off in terms of what they understood to be a good burn. And then, of course, her delivery, that someone would say, you're a real idiot. I think you should be impeached. Oh, yeah, well, hold on.
Well, here it says on page 47 that you're a jerk.
Yeah. Right.
Give me a minute. I have to go find it. I lost my place.
Right. Oh, here's the page. Congressman, the jerk store called and
you're
they're out of you. There you did it. Okay, that's great. Good delivery.
Great.
So they got there's a photo of Congresswoman Jayapal's burn page. And by the way, again, the list of burns is you viewed this is hilarious. We're going to burn you with a picture that says that when you reviewed the Epstein files, you asked to see the email from a Middle Eastern sheikh who sent Jeffrey Epstein something that he described as a torture video, which he liked very much. Can you explain why you were interested in that? Oh, I don't know.
That's
Torture?
Not your constituent.
Yeah, right, exactly. That, and of course, the other burn was a guy got arrested for drunk driving in your district the other day. Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you, not drunk drive, but arrest the guy? And why didn't you drunk drive? That's a good question. Hi, everybody. It's me, David, still your host for the Kagro in the Morning Show after all these years. Thank you for all your continuing support for the show. And if you're listening regularly and still thinking about getting on board as a supporter, well, the time is now. Patreon.com is the easiest way to make recurring subscription-style payments every month, all year round, to keep us going. patreon.com/KagroX brings you to our page where you can sign up with your monthly support. And hey, have you seen our clever new subscription tiers? It's easier than ever to sign up for, say, $1 crisp bill for every information-packed 2-hour show. If you're the plan ahead type, there's even a year-long subscription program that saves you 15% on the cover price. Or it would if there was a cover price, or even a cover, for that matter. patreon.com/KAGROX. Thanks again for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Let's continue. Greg Dworkin is still with us. We were in the middle of screaming about Pam Bondi screaming at people and the disgrace that ordinarily she would have brought upon the Department of Justice and the administration. But Newsmax didn't like it. We know that much.
Yeah.
But we were just, what were we saying? What the hell were we doing?
Well,
just talking in general.
I told you on the break, I'm
yes.
reminded of that horrible video that Trump decided in his infinite wisdom to low information voters that if he passes around a video that is ranting about something or other, who even remembers at the end of the video,
I don't know what
Michelle and Barack Obama's faces attached to apes.
Yes.
And then outrage, and they
Correctly.
First said, no, it's really just Lion King memes, leave us alone. Well, there are no apes in Lion Kings, and so, they got trashed for that. And then the stories afterwards, because it was genuine outrage, a anonymous White House staffer, kept anonymous so we could keep with our access, which is all we care about.
I guess.
Said, oh my gosh, this is terrible. This is going to lose us the elections. And I read that. And again, think about the first half hour of the show. So I read that and think, yes, it was terrible. Yes, it's going to cost you. And yes, you're going to lose the elections.
Yeah.
But they're not correlated the way you think.
they're adjacent.
Because you were going to lose the elections because of all the other stuff. This just happens to be, gasoline on the fire.
All the reasons why you're going to lose the election are also the reason why nobody believed you when you tried to say, even if it was from the Lion King, and why no one believed that it was an innocent mistake, because that's your track record and you actually campaign on that.
Right. So, again, the point I was attempting to make in my incoherent way is that Pam Bondi's garbage hits very differently when you're unpopular compared to when you're popular.
Yeah. All right.
And not to put too fine a point on it, this is Jamie Dupre talking about something else that happened, which gives you an idea that when things fall apart, they just fall apart everywhere, every way, all at once.
Okay.
This is Jamie Dupre posting on, Blue Sky maybe? Even red states are telling the Trump administration that they will not turn over their voter registration list. The latest GOP-led state to object is West Virginia.
That's because they don't have lists.
West Virginia Secretary of State Chris Warner announced today that the Secretary of State's office will not volunteer release of personally identifying information, or in Washington speak, PII, P2, if you go by Roman numerals, of every registered West Virginian.
P.
The DOJ's request, reportedly sent to almost every state, seeks registered voters' personal data, including their Social Security number, driver's license, and other sensitive identifiers. That can all go in the database so that Minnesota ICE can know who you are. The written response from the West Virginia Secretary of State's office of the DOJ can be found at their link. West Virginians entrust me with their sensitive personal information. Turning it over to the federal government, which is contrary to state law, will simply not happen, said their Secretary of State.
All right.
State law is clear. Voter lists are available in a redacted format, but I'll not be turning over any West Virginians' protected information. Warner emphasized just yesterday, February 10th, a Trump-appointed federal judge dismissed the DOJ's lawsuit against Michigan for not turning their data over.
They're
and the judge
Democrats.
Said, you don't have to.
We hate those guys. Yeah, you don't. In fact, you're required not to.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
When you lose and you're on a losing streak, you lose.
Yes, although, no administration has been more adamant about not paying attention to their losses and that they are on a losing streak than this one. They keep making the same cases over and over again, and they're perfectly willing to do it.
The degree of strong-arming, the importance of it, and the amount they're trying, and the overt nature of it are all ratcheting up as they lose.
Yeah.
As they start to panic about losing the election, which means Raskin is right and you do get subpoena power, and then you can start deciding as committee chair what we want to investigate. Unlike, let's say, James Comer, who only wants to investigate Democrats that don't have issues. He wants to do the Biden laptop, and he doesn't want Hunter Biden laptop, and he doesn't want to do anything about Howard Lutnick or anybody, or anybody else who's associated with Jeffrey Epstein, for example.
Yes.
That changes when the committee chair changes. As we have said many times on this year, you don't have to be a process person to understand that he who or she who controls the gavel has a great deal of power in terms of what the agenda is.
Yeah.
When, how, and why stuff comes up or doesn't come up.
Yep. So it'll be a pleasure to have that power. I'm kind of already bracing for the slow, methodical, plodding response that we usually, although hopefully the people who will be on hand to do this in the 120th Congress, there'll be a lot of new faces, but they'll hopefully have been elected on an action agenda. And the people who lived through this and said, if you give us the majority, we're going to act and get things done, will mean it. I know everybody gets a little sensitive when the gavel, actually, it's one of the things about the gavel in your hand. You got the control, but that also means ordinarily accountability comes with it. And that's something Democrats worry about and Republicans don't.
Yes, but now it's the other way. In other words, now I have the gavel and accountability is coming for you.
Oh, yeah. Well, that is the thing you can do, is you could say, while it's true that I should also be held to account, The first thing that will happen with this hammer is I will hit
chair
you with
didn't
it.
do that I'm going to expose.
I guess there is that. So I know it's difficult. We've been disappointed before, but look, you can't let that get in the way of giving it another try. Third time's a charm, I guess. I don't know. But at any rate, hopefully this holds together and people take the momentum of what I hope is the result of the midterm elections and run with it. And it shouldn't be hard to do since Trump will still be there. Very often if there's a presidential election at the same time and you sweep out the old regime, there's the temptation to say, well, that sucked, but let's move on. In a midterm, you can't move on just yet. So, okay. Hopefully that holds. But, yes. Oh, I lost the picture of the Byrne book that I want. I'll go find it.
Oh, well, you'll find it. So
Yeah,
Sarah
certainly.
Longwell was interviewed. I guess Mark Leibovich did a piece for New York. And it was all
like a good
about
guess.
Democrats and how the party still has to step up and get things going. And Sarah Longwell, a never-Trumper pollster, focus group person, basically said, look, Republicans are basically mercenaries. And Democrats are still worried about whether or not their name tags, fit the moment, or whether or not it's mean to say you have to report to work and all this other stuff. And they're not stepping up and understanding. And then she has this quote. It's a quote, get your censor horn.
Oh dear. Well, all right.
And she says, and I quote, they want to win so fucking bad. It was convene hundreds of focus groups across the political spectrum. Democratic leaders and political strategists need to understand anything that does not lead to winning elections is extraneous.
Yeah.
If you watch the DNC, you'll see the pronouns on the name tags, and the voters are like, get that stuff out of here. Just get this guy out of the White House.
Are they, though?
Now, it's always funny to watch ex-Republicans, never-Trumpers, critique the Democratic Party, because it's absolutely true they do not have the gene to care. They just don't. It's not in them. So when they watch somebody actually caring, they get all upset and say, you're distracting from the agenda, which is to beat this guy to a pulp. And, my response to that is, you don't understand. I care about beating that guy to a pulp.
Okay. Whoosh. All right.
You don't have to lose your humanity in order to beat these guys. In any case, there's ways to do it. And this is more of falling apart. We have the tariffs, and this is also a process thing. And again, I have to remind our listeners what happened. Republicans wanted to block any votes challenging Trump's tariffs.
Yes, it would make him
The way they did that is with a legally allowable, morally objectionable tactic.
Mm-hmm.
The strategy was to block. The tactic was to declare no matter how many hours pass, it's all one day. So time is compressed, just like on our show. And that's why I don't remember what we did yesterday, because it's still part of today. But they defeated a rule where Mike Johnson had snuck in a provision to, again, block tariffs for a significant length of time, to like summer.
Yeah.
They defeated the rule.
They did.
By defeating the rule, the floor was then open for Democrats to introduce things. Now, as it played out, here's Jake Sherman before the final vote there, Trump threatens Republican lawmakers on tariffs now that the House is open season for disapproval resolutions, because they knew this was coming. And Trump writes, any Republican in the House or the Senate that votes against tariffs will seriously suffer the consequences come election time, and that includes primaries. Our trade deficit has been reduced by 78%. The Dow Jones has hit 50,000. The S&P 7,000. All numbers were considered impossible. In addition, tariffs have given us great national security, and no Republican should be responsible for destroying this privilege. President Donald Trump, and the measure passed. And 6 Republicans who voted against Trump's Canada tariffs were Thomas Massie, Don Bacon, Kevin Kiley, who were the original people who voted against the rule, but also Brian Fitzpatrick, Jeff Hurd, and Dan Newhouse. So 6 Republicans defected. Remember, they only have a 1-vote majority.
Yeah, and 3 new ones defected after the work was done. That's interesting.
Correct.
Too.
So we have, in other words, it's 218, 214. 1 defects, it's 217, 215. 2 defect, It's 216-216, a tie, which would be a loss in the House, and therefore Mike Johnson can only afford to lose one vote. He lost 6. And all Democrats showed up.
Yes, that's good news, too.
Oh, by the way, something that happened that I was going to report on yesterday,
I knew you would remember this.
ICE came and stole my house.
Right.
Is that Peter Schorsch from Florida reports a top source says Neil Dunn, Florida 2, Republican, will announce an early retirement next week for a time certain. That will be before the midterms. Special election will be in summer. It's for health reasons.
Yeah.
But it doesn't change the balance because 217, 214 still means you lose 1, you still win. You lose 2, you still lose. That doesn't change.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
He lost 6.
Yeah. That'll always doom you if you have a close margin. But yeah, there's a lot of so there with his. I guess it depends on when his resignation becomes effective, and I don't think he's named his date. Has he? Did you say that he did? I don't think so.
No, he said he will name a date certain, and he has not.
Right. Okay. So, when that comes and he's gone, if it's relatively soon, that leaves...
It'll be between now and summer, and it's already February 12th, so let's say it's April 1st.
Okay. Now,
let's say he resigns in April Fool's Day, which is very appropriate.
That's a terrific time for him to do it. So, by the way, as things stand now, so 218-214... I imagine he's holding off a little bit because the next special election is for Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat. She's the 14th district in Georgia, right? And that's March 10th.
Yeah.
So they'll pick up, they'll get that seat back. So he's probably then waiting to say, all right, because if I resign now, that means 217. And by the way, at that point, that means I'll just remind you that about the rules, since we've been through the debacle of declaring the speaker's seat vacant, right? When Republicans got mad enough to get rid of Kevin McCarthy, but then reminder that electing a new speaker required an affirmative 218 vote count, not just a majority of whoever's around. So if there weren't even 218 Republicans in the House, you'd have a real mess on your hands.
Right. Now, all Democrats are showing up. I mentioned that. It's important because all Republicans do not show up. There's at least one who's constantly campaigning and just doesn't do his job.
Yes, and there are a few who are ill, injured, like it would happen with any group of 400 and something people. Not 435 because some of them aren't there. The following March 10th, there's an April 16th special election for Mikey Sherrill's seat in New Jersey, and currently a third special election scheduled for the House, California's 1st district, which was the last of the people to jump out early, as I recall. But that's scheduled for August 4th. That's some time away. This new one will also probably wait such that there's a special election late in summer, but there's two more Republicans, one Republican and one Democrat to replace in the spring. And I mean, I don't think anybody's going to predict anything weird for Georgia 14, but still, these numbers won't change a great deal. And I guess that's why the guy who says, I want out, can't just say, I'm out of here now, or else the whole thing collapses.
Yeah. So interesting. And especially good because people, in fact, don't show up on the Republican side.
Yeah.
I sent you a video of Pam Bondi's laptop during the hearing.
Oh, okay. I thought it was I'll take a look. I thought she was going to be. It's video of her at the hearing saying, I was calm down, Ms. Attorney General. Okay, but this is what video of the last thing you sent me.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is video of her laptop.
Susie Rizzio.
Okay. Is this a national security thing now where we're all going to get arrested for looking at Pam Bondi's laptop?
I don't know. It was on MS Now. So.
All right. Well, arrest them.
Katie Tur reports.
Okay. DOJ caught spying on members of Congress. Yeah. Okay. So is this the computer version of the burn book?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Cool. I got to pause it, bring it back, turn up the sound.
Or it's the actual burn book. I can't tell, but it's I just have the still, but it's an actual video.
Okay. And the still of the video has the caption, WTAF, is this DOJ? 3 question marks, exclamation point. Do we need to roll
Looks
this?
like an actual book. It's a picture of a book.
Okay.
It looks. I can see the binding.
Oh, this is a picture. This is someone's picture of their television displaying the image of Pam Bondi holding her burn book open, and I can't tell whether that's like a laptop screen that she's
if you look at
holding near
toward
it.
the bottom of the picture, you can see the binding where her fingers are.
Yeah, so
it's a
she's
book.
just holding
It's an
it.
actual book.
This is batshit crazy. They are monitoring our representatives. Do you see that? That is a search history.
Okay, this is and is this the poster Susie Rizzio shouting about this? Okay.
Yeah.
There you go, and there's this. So this
But
is.
I think she got it.
Yeah, that's the shot of the Jayapal. Pramila Jayapal. They list as Jayapal Pramila. It's not comma Pramila, but search history. Okay. And the pages that you looked at, which, again, I failed to understand how they viewed that as incriminating in any way, or not incriminating, but as an attack. You looked at the Epstein files.
Meanwhile,
yeah, I don't know what you're talking
Representative
about.
Melanie Stansbury, who was one of the people who went to the DOJ to look at it. Administration officials in the Epstein files, she posted this yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Donald J. Trump, President, Melania Trump, First Lady, Howard Lutnick, Secretary of Commerce, John Phelan, Secretary of the Navy, Paolo Zampoli, Kennedy Center, RFK Jr., Secretary HHS, Kevin Warsh, Federal Reserve nominee, Mehmet Oz, Administration
he's new in
for
this.
CMS, Elon Musk, former Doge.
Yeah, all in.
Okay.
All just happen to be there.
They're all in those files, and there's more. Steve Bannon,
Mm-hmm.
Alex Acosta, former Secretary of
Oh,
Labor,
yes,
who
right,
was
right.
the guy who gave the sweetheart deal to Epstein down in Florida, Bill Barr, and Brett Ratner,
Barr.
film director of Melania. They're all in the Epstein files.
Yes, lots of people are. The new round of outrage in the New York area. Steve Tisch, part owner of the New York Giants. So right up there
And
with
Tom
the Patriots.
Barrack, U.S. Ambassador to Turkey.
Oh.
I mean, just a number of people here.
Yes, and they all somehow are in government. Someone has taken to calling this the Epstein administration. So,
Well,
okay,
it's the
true.
Epstein class, and that's
Yes.
the shorthand for it. I think Rocha Hanna first did that, but John Ossoff made it popular with his popular speech.
Okay.
And so you may see it associated with him, but Rocha Hanna originally coined it,
Yeah.
as they say.
Now being version 2 is somebody calling it the Epstein administration, because there's a pretty strong case to be made for
Epstein
that.
Ballroom, you
Yeah,
name
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It's all there.
It is extraordinary, and I think it illustrates exactly
Why
how
are people
cozy
spending so
we
much
are
time
with
in this
stuff.
Epstein stuff? It's a distraction from what I want to talk. Actually, no.
Like 6 members of your cabinet, man. No, it can't
It's
be
way
described
more than
that
a
way.
distraction.
Yeah.
All right, other things, when things fall apart that you know you're losing, you start getting mad and yelling at everybody. Trump tirade over bridge to Canada backfires, handing Dems 2026 weapon.
Yeah.
His corrupt threat to block the opening of the Gordie Howe Bridge is about to become a big albatross across the necks of GOP candidates in pivotal Michigan. Gordie Howe was beloved,
Pivotal, Michigan.
absolutely beloved in Michigan, part of the Detroit Red Wings, great teams of the late 50s, early 60s. Gordie Howe played till he was like old enough to play with his sons in the National Hockey League. He was an incredible hockey player, probably not the greatest of all time, but you could make an argument that he was. The Gordie Howe Bridge has incredible symbolism in terms of the name, but it turns out, and this is Michigan, there's another bridge that goes to Canada. It's apparently owned by a Republican donor.
Yes.
And
well,
didn't want this
you know?
bridge to compete with him. I don't know what that means. I guess it's a toll bridge.
Yeah.
So his corrupt threat to block the opening of the Gordie Howe Bridge is about to become a big albatross around the necks of GOP candidates in pivotal Michigan. So for all of you who
Crucial
thought
Waukesha.
that the Obama video is the thing that lost the election for Trump in the midterms, well, yes, but no, because like everything else.
Yeah. It is like everything else, and it fits neatly into a lot of different files. I mean, I don't know whether the owners of the Ambassador Bridge are in the Epstein files, but they're certainly a part of the Epstein class, just in terms of,
Well,
you mean somebody owns this bridge?
6 degrees of separation.
Yeah.
So the guy that owns the bridge may or may not have been in the Epstein files, but in order to get Trump to, disrespect the new bridge, and demand that it not be built unless they get half the revenue because it's extortion.
Yeah.
How did he get that message to Trump? He went to Howard Lutnick.
Hey, all right.
Who is in the Epstein files.
Right, sure. It makes a great deal of sense, except for the part about the bridge being privately owned. That it's very post-Soviet Russian, really. Just the idea. Apparently, in 1979, I'm sure that there was economic distress that led to this idea of let's privatize this bridge. I don't know if they really thought one guy will buy it and then just become a bazillionaire, but it did happen. And when you were saying, well, it's a prominent Trump donor owns the bridge, and so they want to keep it this way. And this is a great chicken and egg story. Do you become a Trump supporting a-hole because you have a monopoly billionaire situation going on,
Yes.
or is it the other way around, or what?
No. This family has owned the bridge for decades.
Yeah.
And they've been contributing to nutcase Republicans in Michigan for years.
They're the only ones that would allow this to continue.
But this is what Greg Sargent says about it. There's another angle here that makes this even more absurd. Trump's threat could actually backfire on him in the GOP because it will now become a big issue in House and Senate races in Michigan. And those races could help decide control of Congress. Mm-hmm. The issue clearly favors Democrats, particularly now that with this threat, Trump may be doing a solid for a fellow billionaire. There's at least 3 competitive House races in Michigan and a Senate contest, and the battle is well suited for Democrats. The already built bridge has broad bipartisan support. Rick Snyder, Michigan's former Republican governor, points out that the bridge would reduce transport costs and create jobs, and blocking it would hurt Michigan manufacturers and kill jobs and hike costs for customers. Mm-hmm. And now GOP candidates and incumbents will have to take a position on Trump's threat to block the bridge, which they didn't have to do till he opened his big fat mouth.
Yeah. This would be an interesting thing. I loved, of course, Trump's rant about the bridge. He somehow worked in there that Canada was going to have a trade deal with China, which, okay, but also that the trade deal would entail China banning hockey in Canada, which is just so laughable. I don't know what to do with it.
He's insane.
But that will make people say, all right, he really has lost it. And also, why aren't Republicans? What's the problem that a Republican would have with China banning hockey in Canada? Anyway, I'm not quite sure what that's supposed to mean. But this is supposed to be a threat
CNN documents,
to
by
Canada.
the way, Michigan owns half the bridge. U.S. Steel was using the project, and Canada financed the bridge's construction.
Yeah, they built it. And now Trump says, but I want the money from it. And I think everybody recognizes that as, no, that's not the way anything works.
Right. It's notable, then, he writes, that one of Michigan's most contested House races is the open race for the 10th District, which is part of Macomb County, the original Reagan Democrat place. One Democratic candidate for this seat, former prosecutor Christina Hines, Hines, says Trump's threat will resonate badly with the district's blue-collar workers. This would threaten a lot of good-paying jobs across southeast Michigan.
Yeah.
Hines, who has family members in the auto industry, told me she noted that manufacturing and defense, big local industries, are already struggling with Trump's tariffs. Delaying this bridge is another move that would raise prices and hurt the economy. It's all about affordability, folks.
Okay. And traffic.
The news that a billionaire lobbied Lutnick will make it even worse.
Yeah. Well, we can send some Virginia Democrats there to tell Michiganders, and I guess the folks from the other side, Windsor, Ontario, doesn't have to be this bad on the traffic. You could open another bridge. In fact, we've already built it. It's here staring you in the face. Your commute time could be cut in half, but Trump won't do it.
Michiganders, did you say?
I did.
Well, that's funny because, MAGA has been erupting with fury because obviously Bad Bunny isn't an American because he keeps calling himself a Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
And that proves he's not American.
Oh.
And I wonder if
Michiganders
Michiganders
also
have anything to say about that.
Yes,
Or
they're
Texans.
not American either. Yeah, that's right. You're just from a different part of the country. Yeah, well, Republicans have pretended to not understand that situation for a long time.
Well, the old adage that, it's hard to get a man to understand something when his salary depends upon him not understanding it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Upton Sinclair, over 100 years ago. Still true.
Yes. Lots of things that are old are true. Have you seen, just recently, Okay, now I can't remember, of course, exactly who did it, but famous, the very famous actor who, well, darn it,
Did what?
Well, among others, was he on
on
one of
TV?
the late talk show? Yeah, right, on Colbert. Yeah, and delivering a Shakespeare. Is it a soliloquy? I don't know. A monologue at any rate. But that was quite relevant to our current immigration situation. I'll have to find it and circulate it. And
I'm
not
happy to
with
tell
1
you.
second
I have no
to
idea
go.
what you're talking about.
Okay. Well, no, it's a good thing. And you'll be happy when you see it. And I will tell everybody
I don't know
what it is
anything
in the
about
next break.
contemporary culture that
Right.
started after 1975. Cause
Yeah, you know how that goes. I'll find it and I'll point you to it, because if you haven't seen it, you should. And my phone records of it, where I saw it, will have that information. If I just
let me
go
end
and
with
look.
this, because our time is
Yes.
coming to an end.
You please
Until
go
next
ahead
week.
and do that.
Ronald Brownstein wrote a couple of days ago
Dang it.
that I was going to do yesterday and didn't. The reality for blue state Republican candidates in 26, when we were just talking about Michigan, that's why it's relevant, even though we said it a couple of days ago, is that Trump has cratered in those places. In 24, he lost Minnesota by 4.2 points. His net approval there is minus 20. He lost New York State by 13. And latest Siena research, he's minus 29. Virginia, New Jersey in 2025
Virginia, New
showed
Jersey.
how much that matters.
Yeah.
And the state polls tend to be a little more positive for him than the national polls, said one of the observers. So this is, he's losing.
Yes.
It wasn't
Well,
just
he's
that
a
Obama
loser.
video.
Yes. Okay, and it is Ian McKellen, Sir Ian McKellen, to those
There
of
you
us
go.
who pay attention to these things. And I found the video, and he's on...
Captain Picard's friend.
Yes, and performing Shakespeare's Sir Thomas More on the Stephen Colbert Show, and making quite a delivery of it. I always love when a really skilled Shakespearean actor will make sense of Shakespeare just by tweaking the delivery a little bit so that modern audiences can get it. And boy, does he do a great job with it.
Right.
And it's very poignant, but it's also apparently something he's been doing on talk shows since 2017.
Yes,
and then
he's good
pointing
at it.
out...
You got to practice. He does
He's
practice. Shakespearean
Yes.
actors practice.
They do, and as he's pointing out, this was over 400 years ago we knew that this kind of approach to immigration was a problem. Quite interesting. Fascinating. Thank you very much. I would say go away and come back Monday at this point. What are
Great
you
stuff.
doing?
I'll see you yesterday.
Okay. Alrighty, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I went and retrieved the thing, and Scott reminded me in the middle of Greg's parting shot what the name I was searching for was, and I'm like, oh, I remember half the name. And I mean, it's super famous actor, but it's just one of those things that you just blank on. Ian Mick. And then, of course, what do I know him from? Oh, well, I know him from a lot of things, but immediately what springs to mind is that movie franchise that people don't like talking about anymore because political views of the author behind it. You know what I mean? And can I bring any other role to mind? No, because panic sets in. Anyway, I've found the clip, and it's lengthy, but I think he wants everybody to see it, so he probably won't sue us if we play it. Here you are. So, and again, what are we talking about? Shakespeare. Well, let's see. Hold on a second. As I'm queuing this up, and it's identified only as Shakespeare's Thomas More. And so what are we talking about? The play, Sir Thomas More, I don't remember whether we're talking about, what's the technical term for what we're listening to? Soliloquy, is that right? Is that wrong? Why does that come to mind? I don't know. Anyway, the speech is, I don't know how much more background we need to give you, but if you just listen to it and listen to his delivery, and it helps, of course, to be able to see his face when he's doing it. But there you are. I can only bring you so much at this point. The video is not available to you. But listen and think about what is happening here. We cut in sort of awkwardly here as he launches into this thing, and I guess Thomas More is calling out to the observing crowd, asking whether they think the strangers, the foreigners in this case, should be, in fact, removed from England. And apparently that is the the sentiment of the crowd, and he's acknowledging it and then lecturing them as to what that really means for England and humanity.
Grant them removed. And grant that this your noise hath chid down all the majesty of England. Imagine that you see the wretched strangers, their babies at their backs, with their poor luggage, plodding to the ports and coasts for transportation. And that you sit as kings in your desires, authority quite silenced by your brawl, and you in ruff of your opinions clothed. What had you got? I'll tell you. You had taught how insolence and strong hand should prevail, how order should be quelled. And by this pattern not one of you should live an aged man, for other ruffians, as their fancies wrought, with self-same hand, self-reason, and self-right, would shark on you, and men like ravenous fishes feed on one another. You'll put down strangers, kill them, cut their throats, possess their houses. Oh, desperate as you are, wash your foul minds with tears. And those same hands that you, like rebels, lift against the peace, lift up for peace. And your unreverent knees, make them your feet to kneel to be forgiven. And say now the king, as he is clement, if the offender mourn, should so much come too short of your great trespasses, but to banish you. Whither would you go? What country, by the nature of your error, should give you harbour? Go you to France, or Flanders, to any German province, Spain or Portugal, nay, anywhere that not adheres to England? Why? You must needs be strangers. Would you be pleased to find a nation of such barbarous temper that breaking out in hideous violence would not afford you an abode on earth? Whet their detested knives against your throats, spurn you like dogs, and like as if that God owned not, nor made not you, nor that the elements were not all appropriate to your comforts, but chartered unto them. What would you think to be thus used? This is the stranger's case. And this, your mountainish inhumanity. William Shakespeare, 400 years ago.
You get the point. So, yes, rather not only very well delivered, but I mean, it does help, of course, to have the closed captioning in case you don't necessarily catch every word. But from Act 2 of Sir Thomas More, described here, by the way, I just thought I would give you the background of it in case you hadn't run into it before, from Wikipedia, during which, in this second act of the play, a group of native Londoners plan to set fire to the foreigners' homes. Others urge a military response. Sounds familiar also. Moore decides the best way is for him to speak to the rioters. The rioters express their complaints, then agree to hear from Moore. Moore begins by saying that the riots are disgracing England, and that if disorder prevails, civil society will fall apart, and none of the rioters will live to an old age. He tells them when they rebel against the law, they rebel against God. That's a more theocratic approach to all of this. But Moore offers a deal to the rioters. If they will behave and go to prison in peace, he promises they'll be given a pardon. That also sounds familiar. The only other option for them is death. The rioters, I guess not surprisingly, accept the offer and are taken away. But what's most interesting about this is his portrayal that, look, what you're saying here is if you're able to say that for whatever reason, by virtue of your being native to England, can call down violence upon the strangers, the foreigners in your midst, because you say so, because you have the stronger hand here, then you need to realize that if might makes right, someone will use might to make what they do to you right. You have a house? No, you don't. We're taking it because we can. And that's the new state of the law. And that will set you in a panic, fleeing England. And where do you think you might land? Anywhere else in the world. Where wouldn't they be, by your own logic, perfectly within their rights to burn your house down and cast you out because you're a stranger there? The whole point here is you need to be showing people this sort of, you need to show mercy to everyone in this situation and understand the situation that drove them to your shores, and not do this because someone will eventually do it to you and you'll be dependent on the same mercy being afforded you. It won't be there if you destroy the moral order of things now at this point. And what he's pointing out is that this has been a problem for a very, very, very long time. And the answer has been fairly obvious for a very, very long time. Not that everyone has necessarily, recognized it and agreed to abide by it. But there you have it. I thought it very well delivered, of course, but that's because he's an incredibly skilled actor. Okay, now back to the news of the day. And once again, if you're interested in finding this for yourself, and especially for seeing it on your own, you can find it on pretty much any of the social media platforms, looking for Sir Ian McKellen on The Colbert Show, performing Shakespeare's Sir Thomas More. And I don't think there's that many clips, and I think that's probably the only act he performs that meets that description. All right, back to some of the other, just following up on some of the stories from yesterday. In the early part of the show, we had caught wind that the El Paso airport, the airspace around El Paso had been closed, and it was announced that the FAA was closing it for 10 days, which really worried people because, what would require the closure of all the airspace around El Paso, Texas for 10 full days, if not something horrific that the administration had in mind that required, closing air traffic between maybe the entirety of U.S. and Mexico? Was it a military operation that was going on? Had something happened? Was there an outbreak of disease in the area at one of the detention camps, and that was the reason they didn't want any drones flying over it? What was happening? But by the middle of the first hour of the show, we were informed, or at least the news was circulating, that, oh, hey, by the way, it's not 10 days of closure of the airspace around El Paso. In fact, it's not the closure of airspace around El Paso anymore. Anyway, we're lifting it. The FAA lifting the ground stop and airspace closure, not in 10 days, but in about an hour. So what the hell was going on? Now we know, embarrassingly enough, that it is something so monumentally stupid as to defy belief. But I will say this. There were a lot of people who were out there on social media saying, I don't know what this is, but I do know that when we find out, it's going to be so effing stupid you won't even believe it. And they were right. So I got a couple of reports about what actually happened, but you will already, I'm sure, have heard this. But let's see, what's the best expression of it? I don't even know. I'll have to poke around and choose one. But I guess we'll start with the New York Times, because they'll present it matter-of-factly, and it'll be up to us to embellish it with, oh my God, that's so stupid. Border officials are said to have caused the El Paso closure by firing an anti-drone laser. Okay, so that makes it sound like it was not absolutely necessary and maybe it was pretty dumb, but also, did you know we had anti-drone lasers? And also, border officials. What do you mean, border officials? Wait a minute, we have an anti-drone laser? Yes. Don't you know we have the most advanced weaponry in the world? Sure. But when you say border officials caused it, is that because border officials said, hey, Army, whoever, maybe, I guess, who has the anti-drone laser? Air Force, Space Force, Army? I don't know. Whoever's got it, you should fire that thing for reasons. And the Army's, armed forces said, yes, okay, let's do it. No, not even that dumb. It was a different level of dumb. It was, so we've developed this anti-drone laser. Maybe. I don't know. Does it work? I don't know. Maybe. Is it dangerous? Sure, absolutely. Does the Border Patrol, Customs and Border Patrol, those border officials, do they have one? No, they can't. Why would they? Yes, they do. Why? Because the Pentagon thought it would be appropriate. Whose? Oh, could only be the Pentagon of Pete Hegseth, right? Yeah, sure. Have the laser. And I mean, what? Why? Why do we have it? Why do we think there are drones flying over the border? There may be. I mean, there's all sorts of weird fantasies that may or may not have any basis in reality. Now, of course, you have we're going to have drones delivering Amazon packages to people. We're experimenting with that. Okay. Well, then doesn't that mean that drug cartels could use them to fly drugs across the border? I guess. But drugs are actually, or the packages they want to bring across the border, generally speaking, fairly heavy. Can a drone do that? I don't know. But we better get anti-drone technology in here. And it better be lasers, because lasers, awesome. Pew, pew. By the way, Donald Trump says we have to go back to steam power to shoot down the drones because the lasers, they're too advanced. No one knows how they work. But in this case, the technology, he loves it. People familiar with the episode, we are told by the New York Times, said the use of the technology was not coordinated with the Federal Aviation Administration. That is also a large problem. Should we shoot down things out of the sky with lasers? Yes. Are lasers dangerous, and can they F up air traffic? Yeah, they can. Is that why you closed the area? Yeah. But okay, so do I have this right? The armed forces used the laser. No. All right, I heard you. The Border Patrol used the laser? Yes. And so they're shooting aircraft out of the sky? Yeah. So they closed the airspace in coordination with the FAA so that no planes would fly in there, and they could be sure that the thing that they were shooting down was a drone, right? No, wrong. Well, which part? Well, right at the beginning, for one thing, coordinated with the FAA. They did not do that. What? How could they? So it turns out the closure was the FAA saying, oh my God, what? Everybody stop. Don't fly in. Oh my God, there's lasers being fired by I don't know who and I don't know what. That's what it was. 10 days? I don't know whether they necessarily, were intent on doing that. But I guess depending on the level of surprise to FAA officials, you could see, any number of reactions. You're going to be doing what, where, and who is going to operate this thing? Yeah, maybe how about no planes ever fly again because there's a crazy idiot in charge of firing space weapons at planes now. And, of course, this is all premised on the idea that the Border Patrol guys are going to use this thing properly to shoot down bad guys' drones. What did they shoot down? Maybe nothing, but what did they end up firing it? It was a balloon, a party balloon, like a kid's birthday party balloon, which says to me, had the Air Force done this, I would have said, don't you have one of those radar things, or maybe, what do you call them? Airplanes that you could fly into the sky and say, what is that thing? Please get a visual 10-4 over and out on that thing. This is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 name byline story. I don't know what that means, but sometimes news observers, behind the scenes observers, tell us this is significant. The names are, Karen Demergian. I hope I have that correct. Eric Schmidt, Kate Kelly, Hamed Al-Aziz, and Luke Broadwater, many of whom we call out with some frequency. The abrupt closure of El Paso's airspace late Tuesday was precipitated when Customs and Border Protection officials, the meanest oafish guys who are effing up Minneapolis and everywhere they go, and everybody blames ICE for it. ICE is certainly out of control and operating more or less lawlessly, but the ones who are really doing the thuggish, stupid, brutish, obviously unconstitutional, illegal stuff, Customs and Border Patrol. What do we do about it? Give them space laser weapons. Yeah, good idea. As somebody put it, they gave the laser from Real Genius to Greg Bovino. Wonderful, fantastic. Tom Homan, I guess, would now be operating this thing. So, the abrupt closure of El Paso's airspace was precipitated when Customs and Border Protection's officials deployed an anti-drone laser on loan from the Department of Defense, which of course is the Department of War now, rawr, without giving aviation officials enough time to assess the risks to commercial aircraft, according to multiple people briefed on the situation. And can I remind you that the whole country is being reminded nightly now, every time they put the skating on TV from the Olympics, that this kind of bumbling incompetence and refusal to communicate between departments of the government led to the collision in the approach to what they now call Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C., that took out the plane that had all the families of all the figure skaters coming back from competition on it. And every night they remind you that the people skating lost their parents, their relatives, their coaches, their family and friends in this ridiculous collision because the left hand isn't talking to the right hand in the Trump administration. And by the way, have they learned anything whatsoever? Yeah, we're going to blast lasers into the sky where people are flying to the airport because there might be a balloon or something. This is not good. This is not the way you should be handling things. You should be taking the keys away from these guys. The episode led the Federal Aviation Administration to abruptly declare that the nearby airspace would be shut down for 10 days. An extraordinary pause that was quickly lifted Wednesday morning at the direction of the White House, of course. Right. Well, we need to do this for safety. I don't care about safety. And anyway, we figured out what the mistake was, and we won't do that again. Lift it, because otherwise you're fired. Top administration officials quickly claimed that the closure was in response to a sudden incursion of drones from a Mexican drug cartel, from perhaps many Mexican drug cartels that required a military response, with Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy declaring in a social media post that, quote, the threat has been neutralized. But it was a children's party balloon. The threat has been neutralized. I breathed in the threat. That's what happened. Really? I mean, I love that they use the military terminology. The threat, the OPSEC has been established. The threat has been neutralized. What was it? It was a Barney balloon. Oh. But that assertion, the Times continues, was undercut by multiple people familiar with the situation who said that the FAA's extreme move came after immigration officials earlier this week used an anti-drone laser shared by the Pentagon without coordination with the FAA. And by the way, doesn't the FAA have a big thing about like lasers? Like it's a federal crime to point a laser pointer into the sky because it might interfere with the vision. It's true. Interfere with the vision of pilots and cause some kind of an air disaster, i.e. a crash, let's say, one of these planes, like we've been reminded, was the case about a year ago. You can't point a laser pointer into the sky without it being a federal crime. But we're going to give these idiots an actual anti-drone laser. But don't tell anybody who controls the airspace around here, because that would be planning, and we don't do that. Wow. Well, CBP officials thought they were firing on a cartel drone, which by itself would be a bad idea anyway, right? We think it's a cartel drone. Yes, so what? Well, we ought to shoot it out of the sky. Okay, well, someone ought to shoot it out of the sky. But you? Well, we're Customs and Border Patrol. Yeah. And it flew over the border. Yeah. Well, so that's us. That's our jurisdiction. Is it? Because, of course, you guys have all been screaming that we're being invaded by Mexico, and So this is now part of that, and our airspace is being violated. Is there some sort of organization we have? Maybe we should write this down. Somebody please take notes. We need to start an organization that will be responsible for responding to incursions into our airspace by foreign enemies. Have we got one of those? We probably don't. We should start one. But in the meantime, why don't we give a space laser to the guys who are supposed to be riding around in Jeeps looking for people crossing the border on foot? Yes, that is the answer. That's really what we did. CBP officials thought they were firing on a cartel drone. Congratulations, you have identified something you think is a cartel drone. Call someone who can do something about it. We want to do something about it ourselves. No, you're not allowed. You don't know how. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter because it wasn't a cartel drone. It turned out to be a party balloon. I don't know whether it was it a Mylar balloon? That's dangerous. I mean, maybe it was. I don't know. I don't know if a regular plastic, rubber, whatever balloons show up on radar. Maybe the Mylar ones do. Anyway, that's really rather remarkable. Defense Department officials were present during the incident, one person said. You would hope that they would be the kind of people that would be the ones who would say, wait, no, stop, don't fire the laser, it's a balloon. But I guess not. It was the opposite kind. The ones who say, yeah, sure, blow up the balloon. What's the harm? The Defense Department and the Department of Homeland Security did not immediately respond to requests for comment. The FAA declined to comment. I would. The military has been developing high-energy laser technology to intercept and destroy drones, which the Trump administration has said are being used by Mexican cartels to track Border Patrol agents and smuggle drugs into the United States. Why? Because there are some people who would say, I don't care if they track Border Patrol agents, but wouldn't be willing to say, but I'm okay with them smuggling drugs. Then there are others who would say, I'm against them smuggling drugs, but I don't care if they, or do the border stuff. I don't know. But I guess this is belt and suspenders. Well, also, it will ban hockey in Canada. Right. Well, we pick up all the stragglers there, too. Now everybody opposes the use of drones. The airspace closure provoked a significant backlash from local officials and sharp questions by lawmakers on Capitol Hill, including some Republicans who expressed skepticism about the administration's version of events. And why not? It's a very stupid version of events. At this point, the details of what exactly occurred over El Paso are unclear. Senator Ted Cruz, Republican of Texas, and the chairman of the Senate Commerce Committee that oversees the aviation agency, the FAA, told reporters on Wednesday after attending a closed-door briefing with Brian Bedford, the FAA administrator. You don't know his name because who cares? But there it is. Normally, the FAA administrator is a pretty anonymous person because things are going well. In this case, now you need to know the FAA administrator's name. And also, you have a new search term if you go and review the Epstein files. Mr. Cruz and Senator John Cornyn, also a Republican of Texas, if you didn't know, both said they wanted a classified briefing on the incident from the FAA and the Defense Department. Senator Jack Reed of Rhode Island, the top Democrat on the Armed Services Committee, also rejected the administration's explanations. A 10-day shutdown of a major U.S. air corridor is an extraordinary step that demands a clear and consistent explanation, Mr. Reed said in a statement. The conflicting accounts coming from different parts of the federal government only deepen public concern and raise serious questions about coordination and decision-making. And if you think that's boring and bureaucratic, remember that coordination and decision-making and the lack of it and the poor job they did with it caused an Army helicopter to crash into an airliner a year ago and kill everybody on board. According to 4 people briefed on the situation, Pentagon and FAA officials were set to meet on February 20th to discuss the safety implications of deploying the military's new anti-drone technology, which was being tested. With live fire over El Paso? Apparently, yes. But the FAA's urgency intensified after CBP officials deployed the technology. It was not clear if that incident alone prompted the FAA's decision to close the airspace over El Paso. FAA officials did not respond to questions about the claims by Mr. Duffy and other administration officials that a subsequent drone incursion had necessitated the closure of the airspace starting at 11:30 p.m. local time. A Transportation Department spokesman did not respond to inquiries about whether a party balloon had been fired on this week. But according to people briefed on the matter, at the time FAA officials closed the airspace, the agency had not yet completed a safety assessment of the risks of this new technology and that it could pose to other aircraft. So you could see they might say, we need a little time. Two of the people added that FAA officials had warned the Pentagon that if they were not given sufficient time and information to conduct their review, they would have no choice but to shut down the nearby airspace. I mean, yes, I think they would have to. I know it all looks like they're incredibly incompetent, but it actually is the FAA doing a pretty decent job having been handed an extraordinarily stupid and dangerous situation. That is incredible. And of course, all the Republicans will point to the stupid bureaucrats who threatened to shut down the whole airport for 10 days over nothing. But what are you doing shooting lasers at balloons, guys? You have to coordinate. The FAA's initial closure announcement late Tuesday, which cited special security reasons, barred all aircraft from flying in the area below 18,000 feet for 10 days. Hi, it's me, David. I mostly do the commercials around here, too. Have you ever thought you'd like to do a show like this one, but a lot shorter? Maybe without necessarily waking up early each day, or even, let's say, working at it each day? Well, now you can, sort of, and by now, I mean pretty much any time you want, because what I'm talking about is you recording a news story, sharing an essay, or otherwise contributing your thoughts on these crazy times with the rest of us, and with any digital recording device. Make the show your own, as I like to say. Send me a digital file of your recording, a link to any source material, and a note about how you'd like to be identified on the air at KagroX, that's KAGROX, at gmail.com, and I'll take it from there. Don't worry about those ums and ahs either. I sure don't, but I'll even do my best to edit your submission down into a nice-sounding dispatch from the field. So come on, everybody, make the show your own. Help me prove once and for all that I'm not just imagining this audience. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. There's more dumb stuff about the FAA, and it's not even the dumb stuff isn't about the FAA closure of El Paso's airspace. The dumb stuff is about the Defense Department giving a laser weapon to the Border Patrol goons and them deciding, one, we could probably fire it and we shouldn't have to tell anybody about it. After all, we're going to shoot down a drone. So what we want to do, I'm sure in their minds they were thinking, well, operationally, can we, this is sort of there's a legitimate question in the middle of all, well, there always was a legitimate question. Should we feel comfortable firing destructive laser weapons into the middle of air traffic? No. But there's a legitimate question in this, right? Like, you develop the technology. We have the technology to develop a weapon that can use lasers to shoot drones out of the air. Okay. And we want to shoot drones out of the air, right? Yes, we do. For various reasons. And I don't think we have to go into all of those here. But now the question is, well, what sort of drones would we likely be shooting down? Well, of course, armed drones. Those would be bad. The kind of drones that carry weapons that could be fired at targets in the United States. We'll definitely want to get rid of those. Surveillance type drones. I could see a reason to want to do that. Package carrying drones, if there are such things, for drug smuggling, etc. Yeah, all right, okay. I understand the need in warfare in particular, or for regular homeland defense. I could see some situations, right, where you'd want to be able to have this technology. All right, great. But now I guess thinking about the logistics of it, like if you're flying a little teeny drone, like how good are your laser weapons? Can you fire and hit it? And do you know what happens if you fire a laser weapon that can blast a drone to pieces and you miss? Like where does that laser go? You know, typical gun question. What's downrange of your target in case you miss? Well, we can't miss because lasers and computers. All right. Well, I mean, even so, you're now talking about a drone exploding up in the air somewhere. Here's the basic question, right? The logistical operational question. Clearly, the drone threat that you're worried about is something that can pop up really quickly and with little advance notice, and might even be operating in close proximity to air traffic, commercial air traffic, military air traffic, both, right? Because one, it might actually be intentionally trying to interfere with that, and you might say, well, what if an unarmed drone even is flown up in the air by vicious murderers who want to knock an airliner out of the sky and are looking to murder people? You definitely want to prevent that, right? So what's our ability, if we identify this before it happens, what's our ability to fire a laser with such precision that we blast the drone out of the sky and don't blast the airliner out of the sky? You would have legitimate questions. Can we fire this thing without first notifying the FAA and grounding all the flights? Because if we do that, then, and a plane is under attack, the plane gets attacked while we're coordinating with the FAA to ground all, air traffic in the area, right? Can we do this with such precision that we don't have to worry about it, essentially? And, you might have a theoretical answer, or you might need to do some real testing to find out the real answer. But I assume that testing would be done under controlled circumstances, over controlled airspace. And gee whiz, El Paso, Texas, is that near any place where they might have a, even like a secret air base of some kind with hundreds of square miles of empty airspace that can be used only for highly classified American military airborne missions? I don't know. Well, El Paso's way in the west of Texas, and most of it is surrounded to the north. It's surrounded by New Mexico, and I don't think there's any place in New Mexico where they could possibly conduct any sort of highly classified air operations. I don't know. Maybe in some area of New Mexico, they probably could do that if it existed anyway. And I don't know how many of them they've got. 50? Possibly more? Anyway, but let's do it live over El Paso is definitely not the answer. I understand why they want that capability. I don't know whether they know they have it or not, but I love that they find out by saying, let's find out whether anybody dies in this. Go for it. Probably won't, right? Sure. The FAA's initial closure announcement late Tuesday, which cited special security reasons. And what else would you say? Although, honestly, that could be interpreted as anything from we're bombing Mexico to we saw a UFO to the president's going to fly there. I don't know what. That's pretty vague. Barred all aircraft from flying in and around the El Paso area below 18,000 feet, meaning taking off and landing, as well as just passing by, for 10 days until one day after the February 20th meeting had been scheduled to take place. Basically, so it wasn't like, the standard protocol for this kind of problem is a 10-day closure. It was, we're closing it until after February 20th, when we're having the meeting about how to handle this. Because we don't know when they're going to fire this thing, because a laser's been given to the Border Patrol and we don't know anything about it. We have no ability. We don't even know who to call to say, don't shoot. It's us. So that just happened to be 10 days from now. If it had been 11 or 14 days from now, the closure would have been 11 or 14 days. It wasn't like, standard procedure, 10 dadays. They did not alert the White House or the Pentagon ahead of time that they were shutting down the airspace. The FAA didn't. Interesting. Well, why didn't you tell us? Because it was a fucking emergency. Excuse me. Whoops. Oh, well, I kind of got that word. But hey, it's amazing that CBP, we need to be able to fire this thing on a moment's notice because it's an effing emergency. Well, we need to be able to shut down the airspace because you're blasting things out of the sky. What are you bureaucratic nerds? You didn't even tell the White House. This is a very odd, it has to be a two-way street, right? They didn't alert the White House and the Pentagon ahead of time. They were shutting down the airspace. A senior administration official said, speaking on condition of anonymity, of course. The move also blindsided El Paso officials. I want to be very, very clear. This should have never happened, Mayor Renard Johnson of El Paso said in a news conference Wednesday morning. You cannot restrict airspace over a major city without coordinating with the city, the airport, the hospitals, the community leadership. That failure to communicate is unacceptable, he said.
Unacceptable!
And I must add, it is unusual. That is true. And that is not how this works, is probably another great response for this. You can't shut down the airspace over a city for a situation like there might be a drone out there. Unless, well, then you can't shut down. You would just, without shutting down the airspace, you would just say, if there's an armed drone and it's on its way to attack El Paso, I don't think anybody would complain about firing on that. But if you were wrong, they would say, this is maybe technology that is not ready for prime time. The laser might work, but your ability to tell what you're firing lasers at needs to catch up to the laser. All of this is garbage. Federal agencies largely stayed mum on the controversy, even in its aftermath. Mr. Bedford, the agency's administrator, declined to answer reporters' questions following a closed-door briefing with senators at the Capitol Wednesday evening. Earlier Wednesday, a Pentagon spokesman repeated the military's assertion that it had responded to a drone incursion. A senior administration official speaking on condition of anonymity to address the dispute challenged the claim of a failure of communication, saying that the Pentagon and the Department of Transportation had been coordinating with the aviation agency for months, and it had been assured that there was no threat to commercial air travel. Well, as long as you don't fire the thing, there isn't. The official also said this was not the first time that cartel drones at the border had been disabled by military and immigration enforcement personnel acting jointly, describing their roles as two parts of an ongoing interagency operation. Okay, but that's still pretty vague. How did you disable the things? If you use some sort of electronic weapon that knocked them out of the sky without firing projectiles or laser beams, I guess no one will be upset about that. So long as they don't also have the capability of knocking manned aircraft out of the sky. The Trump administration has been vocal about its plans to fight Mexican drug cartels and neutralize the drones that some are using as part of their operations, even as Mexico's leaders reject claims that they have been involved in cross-border incursions. There is no information about the use of drones at the border, President Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico said in a morning news conference shortly after news broke about the temporary closure of the El Paso airspace. In July, Stephen Willoughby, Deputy Director of the Counter-Drone Program at the Homeland Security Department, testified before Congress that 27,000 drones had been flown within 500 meters of the border over 6 months in 2024, piloted by organizations hostile to law enforcement. Now, I have to say, that too is very vague. And the picture that they want you to draw here in order to authorize this stuff is, well, it's Mexican drug cartels either monitoring Border Patrol personnel to see when they're, past a certain point so they could sneak people or drugs across that point. That could absolutely be the case. Or carry the drugs across with drones. I actually think that that's likely not the case. But that would not, by its terms, its very vague terms, rule out that these are drones operated by Minutemen-style American militias looking for people making illegal crossings that they might interdict with themselves. And are those organizations, well, those guys are on our side. Well, are they? What is our side? What if they're, a lot of them are anti-government militias. I'm patrolling the border because the government won't do it, or I don't want the government to do it. I want to do it. And are those organizations hostile to law enforcement? They are when law enforcement shows up to tell them, stop flying your drones around the border. You're making the Air Force nervous. Those drones, whoever they may belong to, can cause major disruptions to American infrastructure, Mr. Willoughby said, adding that his program works with the FAA to properly coordinate the use of each piece of equipment at specific locations and times to ensure that impacts to the national airspace are minimized. But unclear whether that includes any of the laser things. The day after Mr. Willoughby's testimony, Ms. Sheinbaum, President Sheinbaum to you, disputed his assertion, saying in a news conference that Mexican officials had observed the cartels using drones against one another inside Mexican territory, but not at the border. Why not, right? Speaking at the same news conference in July, Raimundo Pedro Morales Angeles, Mexico's Navy secretary, insisted that the cartel's drones, quote, have not been detected at the border. That could just as well be ours. Or not ours, but the drones of American citizens who are acting like a-holes at the border. In the United States, where many officials accept cartel drone incursions as established fact, like Cornhusker kickbacks and broccoli mandates before them, some wondered why this particular incident would have prompted such an uncommonly sweeping response from the FAA. Although, again, you have to remind you, the sweeping response here, the response I'm worried about is the CBP response. Fire a laser at it. That's the dangerous response. The FAA's sweeping response is, holy effing crap, what is going on here? Get all the planes out of the area and keep them on the ground until we can figure out what the hell's going on around here. That's a good response. It's scary, but it's a good response. There have been drone incursions from Mexico going back to as long as drones existed. Representative Veronica Escobar, the Texas Democrat representing El Paso in Congress, said at the news conference. Is she right? I don't know. This is not unusual, and there was nothing extraordinary about any drone incursion into the U.S. that I'm aware of. So that's interesting, too. This has happened all the time. Whence the lasers? What's happening here? This is not an issue. We shouldn't be worried about it laser-wise. In general, the FAA goes to great lengths to avoid closing airports to traffic. Yeah, I think so. Because unplanned closures, even when they happen for just a few hours, can wreak havoc on air travel. Even in a high-risk security situation, FAA airspace closures are usually limited. On January 3rd, for example, when the U.S. military captured Nicolas Maduro, the Venezuelan leader, and his wife, the FAA issued emergency orders barring U.S. flights from operating in the region around Venezuela and closing U.S.-controlled airspace in other parts of the Caribbean only for 24 hours. That's the end of the article, but you're left then wondering, 10 days, why? And the answer is, nobody will tell us what the F is going on with this laser thing, and until we hear from you, and apparently you're only willing to talk to us on February 20th, well, if that's the case, then we can't have anybody flying around here because we don't know who's going to fire lasers. We don't know who's got them. We don't know what the rules of engagement are. We don't know what they think they're seeing. We don't know what they think they can shoot at and what they can't. Because balloons probably aren't even on the list. Why not? Who cares? There's nobody in the balloon. Well, look, don't fire weapons into the sky around the airport. How about that? Could that be a rule? Well, I don't know. Well, if you're only willing to talk to us about it on February 20th, then you're closed until then. The FAA is the one acting aright here. And it's amazing that they'll be portrayed as the ones who are panicking and doing the wrong thing. This is really quite alarming and worrisome, don't you think? Yeah, well, there's a lot. This CNN report, I guess, it was the first one to come up with it. I think the New York Times one seems pretty comprehensive. But yeah, by yesterday afternoon, we found out surprise U.S. military plan to use counter-drone laser triggered El Paso airspace closure, sources say. And now I think we've pretty much straightened that one out, but I'll include that one in the collection for you to take a look at here. One more item, calling back to things we've covered here in the past. Wow, there's an awful lot. But the continuing saga of John A. Sarconi III, as the AI newsreaders told us his name was pronounced, the interim and then maybe at some point also acting U.S. attorney for the Northern District of New York. It's all continuing. It's back in the news. Here, ordinarily, I say, well, let's get something more local than the New York Times to cover it. But, I mean, I guess technically the New York Times is covering a New York situation, but it's upstate. And maybe the thing to look at here is the Times Union, the local-ish paper, I think, has got coverage of what's going on, and we'll perhaps use the New York Times coverage as supplemental in this case. But Brendan J. Lyons, staff writer for the Albany Times Union, has had the first report on things and is the local guy here. So, you know that there's been controversy surrounding Sarconi III's tenure in the job. And let's see, along the way, I don't know if I can untangle the whole chronology here, but he was, I guess, named, he may have served both as acting U.S. attorney for the area and interim. And you'll recall that there was a difference that, like, the interim U.S. attorney is appointed by the AG, the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, who was busy screaming at people. And you get a 210-day limit on that, but if you are in the acting capacity, it's 120 days, and the appointment comes from a different source. And I think, though, they tried both. And they also, like with Alina Habba and others, they've tried to manipulate the office such that they can keep someone in the position without actually getting Senate approval for them to exercise the authority of the U.S. attorney there. And that's upsetting the courts and, to some extent, I think, probably also the Senate. But we've also seen weird manipulations, as with the Alina Habba case, where when they run out of time and you reach your 210-day limit, they tried to pull tricks like saying, okay, well, we now name this person first assistant U.S. attorney for this office, and the office of the U.S. attorney is officially vacant. And as it happens, the law says that when the office of the U.S. attorney for that district is vacant, the first assistant takes over. So therefore, as acting U.S. attorney for the time being, and so let's do that. You appoint this person as interim, the 210 days runs out, then they step back and say, I'm taking a new job, the first assistant, which creates a vacancy. But oops, now I get another 120 days because I'm stepping into the role as acting U.S. attorney. And the court's not liking that either. And of course, you'll remember that when there is a vacancy, normally, if no one has been approved by the Senate, or in this case, no one has even been nominated to the job. Like, what is Trump doing? This is a year in, and he will not, for some reason, even bother nominating these people to take these jobs. Well, then it falls to the district court, the federal district court in the area. The judges meet. They say, we got to have a U.S. attorney in some capacity. We'll need a new interim U.S. attorney. We'll name that person so that justice can carry on. Literally, the Department of Justice can be represented in this federal district court, and things don't grind to a halt because the president can't make up his mind who to nominate. And very often they'll say, as a matter of fact, if you have a nominee in mind, or if you've changed your mind and you are in fact going to eventually nominate this person and send them for approval to the Senate, we'll even agree to use that person as the interim U.S. attorney. We'll let you continue with this. All you have to do is declare your intention to submit to the advice and consent of the Senate. And Trump will not do it. Well, in the Northern District of New York, I guess they eventually got fed up with this game and said, fine, we'll exercise our power to nominate an interim U.S. attorney while you decide whether you're going to nominate Sarconi III or not. And guess what? The president won't nominate Sarconi, but he also won't stand for the federal district court exercising its legal statutory power here. Here's the title of the article. White House promptly fires new interim U.S. attorney in New York. A panel of judges' selection of Donald Kinsella to lead the Northern District office followed the tumultuous tenure of Bondi appointee John A. Sarconi III. Tell us about it, Brendan Lyons. Goes like this. The White House on Wednesday evening fired a new interim U.S. attorney in New York's Northern District less than 5 hours after a panel of federal judges had appointed Donald T. Kinsella to the position. Wow, the White House doesn't act that fast on almost anything. The swift termination, to say the least, of Kinsella, by the way, former catcher with the New York Yankees, now playing as a ghost in Iowa. Of course, you know about that guy. Swift termination of Kinsella, the other Kinsella, a former longtime federal prosecutor, underscored the ongoing tensions in a federal district where the administration of President Donald J. Trump has clashed with judges who have declined to appoint his interim appointments of U.S. attorneys who have not been confirmed by the Senate. Under federal statutes, Kinsella would have served as interim U.S. attorney until the vacancy was filled by Trump. It's unclear if the White House's prompt firing of Kinsella will face any legal challenge. Not certain whether they can bring one or not, even. The panel of judges' extraordinary appointment of Kinsella, and it's not that extraordinary, but the circumstances are a little extraordinary, took place a day after the former acting U.S. attorney, John A. Sarconi, III, quietly reverted his title to First Assistant U.S. Attorney. They're actually trying now, once again, to pull the Haba trick, the Alina Haba trick, after the judges in the New Jersey federal district said, no, this won't work. It's illegal. It's improper. It's ineffective. We won't stand for it. This is not a way to handle a U.S. attorney's office. Oh, no? Well, what about if it was in New York instead of New Jersey? They're literally just saying, what if it was a different guy in a different district? Is that okay? No, it's not. Well, that title change came as Sarconi's term as the Northern District's acting U.S. attorney expired on Tuesday when he hit the, and here it is, 210-day limit for him to remain in that temporary position under the Federal Vacancies Reform Act. Again, there's some discrepancy between the limitations. One carries a certain term, another carries another, and I believe I've now seen it. Somebody's made an error somewhere, I think, in the reporting, and I've seen it reported 210 days attached to acting, 210 days attached to interim. Maybe it's the same in both. In the initial reporting that suggested there was a difference is wrong. I should do some more research to figure this out so that we know which, who's got it right and who's got it wrong, whether it's a reporter or me or both. Two people familiar with the matter said that Kinsella was notified of his termination in an email from Morgan DeWitt, a special assistant in the White House Personnel Office. Kinsella, a registered Republican, in case you were wondering, was out of state on Wednesday when he was sworn into the position in a private virtual proceeding conducted by Chief Judge Brenda K. Sannes, or Sannes, however she pronounces it, that was not publicly announced beforehand. Kinsella, 78, he's getting up in years, received his law degree from Boston University School of Law, and early in his law career was Assistant State Attorney General, as well as an Assistant District Attorney in Monroe County. He served as an Assistant U.S. Attorney in Albany from 1989 to 2002, including as a former chief of the office's criminal division and a leader of its organized crime drug enforcement task force. So a good selection. I know they didn't, he's an older guy. He probably was looking more toward retirement than taking this job on, but it was an interim appointment. Somebody the court trusted, somebody the court knew was a registered Republican. So that should go over okay with the White House, but apparently not. After leaving the U.S. Attorney's Office, he worked for various law firms and more recently has been a senior counsel for Whiteman, Osterman, and Hanna, LLP, a law firm in Albany. Did they tell the White House that he worked for a firm called Whiteman? Is that still a problem? Anyway, his now scuttled return to the U.S. Attorney's Office followed a tumultuous 11 months after Sarconi, a private practice attorney with no prosecutorial experience, was selected by the U.S. Attorney General, that is, Pamela Bondi, to head the office. You don't have to have that experience, but it does help. But, the interim person that they selected has extensive experience, and yet the White House says, no, you're fired. Although Sarkozy had support from Trump, the president had declined to formally nominate him for the position, which would have started the process requiring Sarkozy to be confirmed by the Senate. Why won't he do it? That's an interesting question. The uncertainty surrounding Sarkozy's leadership of the office began in July when the panel of Northern District judges announced that they had declined to permanently appoint him or anyone else to be interim U.S. attorney. Their decision was announced 3 days after Sarkozy incorrectly told a television news station, you remember this, that the panel had extended his tenure. At the time, Sarkozy had been serving as the office's interim U.S. attorney since March 17th, a temporary appointment which, under federal statute, was limited to a 120-day period. So you see, we're going back and forth in these numbers. I think it can be straightened out. I think that reporter has actually got it right. I'm just, behind the eight ball on this one. The judges announced their decision not to appoint anyone to the position in a one-sentence statement in which they had said they declined to exercise the authority granted pursuant to U.S. Code to appoint a United States Attorney for the Northern District of New York. Bondi responded by naming Sarkozy a, quote, special attorney to the United States Attorney General. We've heard that before. She's tried it with Halligan. She tried it with Haba. That allowed the Justice Department to then appoint Sarkozy as the Northern District's first assistant U.S. attorney, which in turn allowed him to ascend to the vacant acting U.S. attorney position. They've done this a couple of times now. And we've seen with Don Bacon and the tariffs that if you do this same stupid trick 2, 3, 4 times, people eventually get tired of the manipulation and decline to go along with it. There's more. I'm going to read it once again off the air just to sort of review the thing. We should talk about it a little bit more tomorrow, but who knows what will occupy our attention. I have some idea what's occupying Justice Putnam's attention because his show comes next. We'll tell you about it after this.
NetworksRadio.com. You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
All right, he's coming up next with, the rebuke on the House floor over the tariffs. That's tops on the list. And then Pam Bondi, I like that nickname, is going to be a topic of discussion, I'm sure, for a good long time for all of us. That and much more from around the country and around the world, plus our second chance at it tomorrow when we see you for our Friday show.